Ladies and gentlemen, order please. And Father Ryan is a gentleman too. I'd like to introduce Brother John Hennessy, Victoria. John is the National Water Development Officer and is a member of the Knights in Victoria for 38 years and is a current member of the Werribee branch. The two stints as with the branch in 1987-2006. He has been a member of State Council for the past 10 years and just retired. He's Water Development Officer, as I said, for the National Water. He's got background in strategic management and marketing, which provides the relevant experience is displayed in writing the Water Development Manual, a document which espouses best practices in running of the branches. And this has been trialled throughout Victoria, and John will explain that. John believes there is still work to be done to bring the manual to conclusion. John is married to Jill and has adult children. He's currently serving on the development program in the subcommittee of Victorian State Council with Carmen and Miranda. John has made a significant contribution to water, Victoria and Australia in promoting best organisational practice. You now join with me in welcome John to the dais, and his paper is entitled Water Development Program and Guidance, Preparing for Another Century of Eternal Service. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Brother Mike. Can you hear me? Thank you, brothers, for inviting me to your Centenary celebrations. I've been invited here to offer guidance and acknowledging where we've come from. I think Brother Amon has done that very adequately. And I'm here to suggest or offer a possible way forward. And more about process than about what we do. In other words, the how rather than the what. So I hear various questions this morning. There are quite a few what we can do, and they should be going on the list. This is all about a program to help develop our branch people, and I borrowed from Wandering to Journeying from Archbishop Mark Coleridge, who delivered the Knox lecture in Melbourne. I think it was towards the end of 2014 or 15, and I thought where it came from was from the Pope, from Pope Francis, and Archbishop Mark took that on. The Pope was saying that the Catholic Church, since Vatican II, has been wandering without much direction and much movement. So we're a journeying body in the church and have been for over 2,000 years. And his point is that we need now to start a journey. And the journey for the church is to eternal life. So that is our destination. And how do we get there? The journey for the Knights needs to be embarked upon, because the Knights, in parallel or in similarity, have also been wandering. And we hear that here, I hear it everywhere. And a lot of our branches are wandering. They do the same things year in, year out. They complain about the same things. They celebrate similar things. But as far as changing or looking to the future or how we might do better or differently, no, that's a bit too much for us. The concept of journeying means finding a destination. It also takes us from the wandering or caretaking. We've been very good at that. We've been very good at listening and administering the order. And as I just said, doing the same things. What's the program? We do this in January. We do this in September. We need to be moving more broadly than that. So that's where I developed the caretaker to leader. We have a whole heap of caretakers, and we now need to demonstrate to them how they may become leaders, and very effective leaders. And just something recently in the formation program, once again I see that year in, year out, and I hear the same comments statewide and also at national meetings, where the formation program is too heavy, too deep, and branches are going away from it, picking up on doing something about the saints.
I agree.
So what I looked at when I opened the formation program for this year, I thought, oh my God, it's all words again. And it was words, words, words. And I looked through the first page and I looked through the second. And I thought, this is really not going to go over with the branches at all. So I spoke to our state chairman and said, we've got to do something with this formation program. So the next thing I did was I read it. That was the best thing I could have done, because it is all about synodality. And what I saw immediately was the reflection and the affirmation it gave to a program like what I'm talking about, I'm about to talk about. It enables synodality to be incorporated into the KSC. And if we read through, I'm guilty of only having read up to session 5, but if we read through the sessions, I believe we can see a parallel with what we're trying to establish within the Knights. And I thought that's ideal then. You know, what am I worried about? But it's still a lot of words, and a lot of that synod stuff comes out in volumes, you know, instead of dot points. That's another point. So it works. So I at a late hour, I've introduced the synodality concept as well into what we do. The branches are the base of this organisation, and we need to understand that changes will come from the branches, not from their state council. And if we can have a look at what a lot of the complaints are, or criticisms, or of the order and what we do, how we do, we can look at the criticism that state council might have in saying we can't get members to join state council, and in the branch they can't get members to get on the branch council, and we don't know who's going to be the next branch chairman. We've got a whole heap of brothers on the state council. Who's going to be the next state chairman? Does this sound familiar at all?
Yep.
10 years ago, when I came onto the national body, I headed into reports and what the reports were telling me. And the state reports were all discourses. They're all stories about what we've done, how busy we are, and really didn't set out where they were trying to go or what they were trying to achieve, but simply stories about all the activities they've been doing. And I thought, an organisation like this needs a whole lot more to drive them than, discourses. So we need to address the reporting issue. The competencies in the branches really need to be addressed, and I'm not downplaying the competencies that are there, because what I heard last night was one of the most profound demonstrations of leadership that I've heard in a long while. And we have such qualifications, talent, experience and intellect on the board of Southern Cross Care Queensland, and I was absolutely inspired. And I thought they spoke too long, but they were speaking from the heart, from the experience, from the love, and all that sort of stuff driving. And you can sit and listen. Yes, you're quite qualified to smile, because what you're doing is brilliant. And we could have sat here all night probably, but we were getting a bit hungry. So if we can come back to where we're all based, we need to talk about what competencies we have in our branches. And that's not decrying or denigrating anyone's efforts or the work that's being done, because that's fantastic and we need to keep it up. The State Council role is simply to serve the branches. So we need to have that in mind fairly seriously, because if we're all waiting for State Council, or State Council wouldn't let us do that, we're not ever going to achieve much. So we need to have the branches being fairly autonomous in their own right. In other words, at branch level, from caretaking to leading. Motivation and enthusiasm, people use these words and don't put much thought into it, but there's one definition I made up, and that is stress. Stress is unmade decisions. If you think about it, and even think about being stressed about a particular thing, and you work out what it is that's stressing you, you can usually identify a decision that you need to make. And sometimes in my desperation, my decision has been not to decide till tomorrow. I don't have to worry till tomorrow. But there are things that are beyond our control, obviously. But generally, unmade decisions is what causes stress. Enthusiasm, and I learned this probably about 1969, enthusiasm is knowledge on fire. So the more knowledge you have, the more enthused, and we heard that again last night. How enthusiastic were you guys about what you're doing with Southern Cross Care? The enthusiasm that exuded was unbelievable. So enthusiasm is knowledge on fire, and strategic planning takes care of both of those, because strategic planning is decision making. It's decision making about the future, what we're going to be doing. All right, respect what we've done, but what are we going to be doing in the future? So we need to look at it in this light. And in doing that, we're making these decisions about the future and therefore releasing stress. Now, having decision making, knowledge on fire. So therefore, we're generating motivation and enthusiasm just through having the strategic planning. So I think that some people will say, oh, we don't need all that. Yeah, probably you don't, but you need to consider what some of the effects of it are, the side issues. We have issues to be addressed, and the first thing that comes up is membership numbers. We need to have a membership drive. We're running out of members, we're getting too old. We're getting too old, but we've still got a brain. And what we're suggesting is, I think, that we can't do all the running around and the energetic work so much, but we still have a brain and we're still able to look at concepts and thinking and that sort of thing. So membership, reporting I've mentioned, and caretakers to leaders. We need to do something about changing that concept. And direction. What's our direction? Where are we going? They are effects. They are symptoms. So as long as we try and treat those effects or symptoms, we're never going to fix the problem. Does that make any sense? So as far as membership goes, and I've spoken to a few people, and some of you here have heard me talk about this before, as far as effects goes and membership, I'm very, provocative. And I'll say, we don't have a membership problem. And people say, yeah, numbers are dropping and all this. No, we don't have a membership problem. We have a planning problem. And if we have our plans in place and go through the sequence of management, we come out at the bottom with a whole heap of specific reasons for recruiting and retaining. We still need to keep going and broadcasting for members. Don't stop doing what you're doing. But as far as the effects go, we need to be looking at the causes. So management, which starts with planning, and the sequence of management, which is planning and organising, and then membership, and then directing and controlling. That's what management is. So we need to be looking at the sequence that happens, rather than jumping in as a control freak might. He wants to control. Well, if you haven't got your planning and organising and everything else in place, you've got nothing to control. If you haven't got planning and organising, you don't need members. So all these little things. Yeah, John, we know all that. Yes, okay, we know all that. And there's a lot of stuff that I'm talking about that you already do. But it might be out of sequence, or it might be unrelated, isolated efforts. Let's do this. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that. So let's grab the toolbox and see what we see. The toolbox I've used here as an analogy or whatever for the Order Development Manual. The Order Development Manual is something that I've written, and it's about halfway to where it should be, or where we want it. And we've been tossing it around in Melbourne, and then I recently, in the last few days, sent it to Mark, Brother Mark, and just going through everything. And questions and answers going back on the email, and finally I decided that he must have written it, not me, because it's exactly the same stuff. This is not John's thing, this is how organisations are run. So we talk about the manual and the functions of management I just mentioned, and planning, and that starts with visioning. You've got to have a vision. And I remember back 15 or 20 years ago, IBM were striking trouble with their performance worldwide because they've been hammered by technology. And IBM, a huge business management machine company, and here they are in trouble, all sorts of trouble worldwide. So what do? I think they had a new chief executive came in, and he went back to the vision. Let's go back to the vision. And what are we here to do? What's our vision? So they maybe modified the vision. I'm not sure exactly what they did, but they headed into the vision and then started again, went through the vision and the mission and why we're here. And we had a talk from Archbishop Comensoli at our Centenary Mass. He related the story of the Franciscans. And St. Francis started up the Franciscans, and then within 100 or 150 years, they were starting to stray from where St. Francis had set the route, the journey, and St. Bonaventure came on board as a Franciscan, and he got back to the original concept and the original vision of St. Francis, and got it all back into one body and heading into what we still have today. So, planning is very, very important. then you're organising and you come up with an operational plan, and then staffing. You need members. That's where members come in after there. And directing and leading, controlling comes in after that. And if we can just follow that sequence, it's fairly simple. So a proper strategic plan will give direction, focus, leadership, organisation, tell us what specific skills and experience on which to focus our recruiting. Members with the right skills for the job, retention of members, greater relevance and service to our church, our vision achieved or realised. And ultimately, we have fraternity, fellowship and pride in membership. Now, I don't want to go into a session on vision, because it's probably several sessions in itself. But I do want to suggest that vision is more important than what a lot of us think. And a lot of visions, and even here in this organisation, the vision is something you write up so you can put it on the wall and people see you've got a vision. And we'll have a look at it in a couple of years and see if it still applies. That sort of vision doesn't take the organisation anywhere. It doesn't give any direction, doesn't give any leadership, and you come up with something like we have here, which is a statement of what we are, not what we want to be. And this is probably fundamental to this organisation moving forward to the next 100 years. And this is something that's currently being under review at national level. And over the next couple of months, I've got to run a discussion with the state chairman on how we come up with a new vision. Not a new one, a vision, a proper vision. And when you look at a vision statement, that's really what it should be. The vision is more a destination. It's where we want to get to and what we want to be in the next 5 or 10 years, heading into the next 100. So it starts with a vision statement, which is a forward-focused and challenging statement of the part that KSC is going to play in the future of the church. So it's not really to be a strong, faith-filled Catholic fraternity committed to serving the church throughout Australia. If I go into my parish at home in Werribee, I can find heaps of guys who are strong, faith-filled, Catholic, they're committed to serving the church. Our parishes are full of those people. So that's what we are already. So to me, that needs to be revamped entirely. I'm not here to do that. So the base from which a strategic plan can be produced to provide direction and enable leadership to be demonstrated. And just a word on leadership. I'm not an expert in leadership. I believe Mark's son is. But leadership is demonstrated. Leadership is demonstrated. It's not legislated, delegated, assumed. It is demonstrated. And that's why I refer to what we had last night was a fundamental and clear example of the demonstration of leadership from 4 guys sitting here. And that sort of demonstration is inspirational. So I think we were all inspired by that and given huge confidence in the success of Southern Cross Care moving on into the future. So I thank you guys for sharing that with us. But that was leadership. Leadership is demonstrated. It's a little bit like respect. Respect is earned. And I think I've got time just to mention Daniel Medvedev, tennis player. He couldn't understand for the life of him why he was getting caned by the spectators in Melbourne. And here's Nadal and others who got the spectators are all eating out of their hands. And I consider the Russian regime and the free world regime where respect is earned. It's not demanded or legislated. And here, poor old Daniel, he comes from a regime where I'm number 2 in the world, now number 1, I think. I'm number 2 in the world. You've got to be with me. Doesn't work that way. You've got to earn it. Sorry for diverging slightly, but similar with leadership. Leadership has to be demonstrated. And I complimented Brother Andrew just then, because what he came with before was a demonstration. And he said, I think, a very interesting and powerful few words about Southern, about the order back then. And he's got a great knowledge of the history, but he demonstrated by getting up there and talking. I think we're nearly there. Recruitment and retention. We need to be aware, before we go into vision or anything like that, we need to understand fully our environment and analyse our environment. What is our branch environment? And what is the church environment? What is the world environment? And write it up in a way. I believe that I got fired down by, I think, Rory O'Connor in Sydney. He said, when I said that, discrimination no longer exists because it's been legislated out, and he, sorry. And now I'm observing that. Our branch chairman in Werribee, he said, in his workplace, it's a bit of a problem being a Catholic. And it comes up all the time. So, that's no longer a high part of what we're doing and what's changed, because we're heading back into that, if anything, anti-Catholic. Not anti-Christian so much, but anti-Catholic. So, if we summarise the environment and examine and list all the issues that jump out at us from that analysis, we need to have a very broad, open thinking, and not, we can't do that, or we've never done that, or we don't do that. It's got to be a can-do thing. And as I say, setting the planning, we've got to be like that. And whether we're like that or not, I don't need to know, but we need to pull our curtains right back. And what I've suggested is the analogy of driving lights. Years ago, back in the 60s, I used to be involved in car rallying, at probably a reasonable level. And we had introduced these things called halogen globes, and they transform the lights of the car. Some of you may remember we went from the old seal beam, and we've now got these things, and they show a beautiful white light. Okay, so that gave us more vision. Now we've got these things, I think they call them LED, and they light up the world. So what we're looking at here is trying to fit a new set of driving lights, an updated set, to the Order of the Knights of the Southern Cross. So we can see, gee, I didn't notice that before, we've never done that. And that is the type of thinking that we need to be adopting. So we've got this picture now of all these things listed. Where do the Knights of the Southern Cross fit into that? How would these fit this picture? What's the church calling on us to do? So there are heaps and heaps of stuff. And then we come back to, but we haven't got the people. Okay, you've got your plan, you've got your organisation, and you've now set up all these areas that we want to look at on the list, and we've categorised that, we've chucked out the duplications, and now we're going to set up the new portfolios that are going to take us somewhere. So we'll have things like parish liaison officer, because we've got 10 parishes at the moment, or we've got 2 parishes. We need to have people in those, and we need different skills to do this particular stuff. And we've already heard a couple of things this morning, things we need to be doing. Okay, we hear that all the time. And I'll just relate briefly a meeting I attended at one of our Melbourne branches. I think it was a district meeting, because there were 30 odd people there, and there were quite a few from different branches. At the end, and this might sound familiar, at the end you go into general business and you're starting to get a bit dry in the mouth, and there's a beer on ice there waiting for the fellowship, and this guy stood up and he went blah 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 blah, and I thought, this is fantastic, and it really was. It was seriously good stuff. And I looked around and the secretary had shouldered arms, so he was sitting there listening. The chairman was sitting beside me, and all the members were sort of listening. And then when he finally ran out of breath, I said, and the chairman then said, okay, anyone else? And I said, excuse me, can I just butt in there? I said, there's a whole heap of do things there. There's a whole, we've got to do this. Who's going to do it? And I said, Brother Secretary, did you take all those notes? Now, brother, can you just repeat what you said? What did I say? So we have all these issues like that, and you've probably heard them yourselves. So what we do in branches can also be scrubbed up a bit, I think. And once again, I don't want to upset or insult anybody who's running the best branch there is. But there's just little examples that come where we need to take the blinkers off, put on our new driving lights and see how we can do better. Recruiting focus on recruiting skills rather than numbers. Don't stop going out there and getting the numbers. If you can do that, that's fantastic. But if we can go into our new portfolios and say we need this particular skill, who do we have that's got that skill? No one. So we need to go and find him. So if we've got 3 or 4 or 5 parishes, we must somewhere, a priest or someone must know someone with these skills. So we do a bit of research, we find the guy and recruit him. Very simple, isn't it? But that's how we go with recruiting. And he then sets up his portfolio, sets his plan for the portfolio, and then goes and recruits his assistants. And that way he's recruiting either from within or from outside to get his assistants. Now we're going for time. Thank you. Just about out, just about finished. Recruitment and retention. So that's not about what we've done, it's about what we're going to be doing. And when we're doing a information night or talking from the pulpit, it's all about what we're going to be doing, and that's why we need you, because we're doing all these things, we're doing a whole lot of new stuff, and it's pretty exciting, and we need you, whoever you are, to be part of that. So from a branch level, we need to be developing the skills that enable this to happen, rather than expecting it, because a lot of our branch people don't have any experience with this. There are a lot of professional people here who's had some experience with it, and I believe Southern Cross Care have just gone through an exercise similar. So, we have bits and pieces of this around us, but we need to be developing this knowledge at ground level. So as they rise, we have eventually another 4 or 5 years, or maybe even longer, at State Council, we've got all these guys who have had this new experience of following the manual that hopefully in the next 6 months will be properly formatted and ready to go out. So that's where we're heading with all of this. And we come back to the restriction of our history. We have the chairman in the middle, or State Council in the middle, and the branches reporting in. So that's a fairly traditional concept of management and how things are happening. And I had a recent experience at home with my chairman down there who I was talking about this stuff, and he said, what will the state chairman think of all this? And I thought, hang on, what's the state chairman got to do with it? Because the chairman shouldn't be standing in the way of what the branches are planning, and also for portfolio people, branch people. They happen to have a lot of creativity, a lot of good ideas, and they're all sort of saying, well, state council won't let us do that, or state chairman who's a control freak. You've got all these different elements in any organisation, so we're not a lot different. But I've had a bit to do with the empowered teams concept of management, and I believe that the Knights need that right now. So instead of having a chairman who's a controller, a chairman who's a supporter and a servant, and we go back to what we decided in 2014 down at Southern Cross Care here, we set up a national plan, and it was all about servant leadership. That's what servant leadership is. I'll leave you with that. Thank you for listening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, John. John will be involved later with Mark on another session, and I'm sure that that's going to be happy to take questions and anything that came up earlier. But could you go and thank John very much for presenting to us and taking his time to come up to Victoria so that we could do it. So thanks, John.
John, look, on behalf of everybody here, I'd like to say thank you. We don't often get a chance to have a plan put out before us that we can follow. A lot of us sit in our branches or at State Council, and sometimes we're lost because we haven't got a plan, we haven't got direction, we haven't got something down in front of us that tells us or guides us on what we should do. You've laid the foundations for us as Knights to expand and to grow by looking at the plan, working that plan, and achieving through that plan. So, John, thank you very much for your presentation, and in return, we'd like to just offer you a small gift of thanks. Would you all again put your hands together?
No check.
No check.